Pairs. I'm Edwina.
I'm Hannah.
If you've been watching us for a while, please like and subscribe our channel. We love answering your questions and helping you out in whatever way we can.
Today we are talking about the differences between American au pairs and British au pairs.
We're going to list 5 differences between American and British au pairs.
First reason is, as an English au pair, I would go home regularly, once a month, maybe even once every 2 weeks, especially if I was feeling very homesick or lonely, and that was a great, easy thing for me to do. Whereas
I could never go home. In fact, when I started my year as an au pair, I was determined to not go home at all, not even for Christmas, and I was going to spend Thanksgiving, which is a big American holiday, and Christmas in France and stick it out for the 10 to 12 months. And at Christmas I ended up cracking. I bought a ticket at the beginning of December, and Thanksgiving was so awful to spend by myself that I was just like, I need to see my family in order to make it through the rest of this year. So it was just, that is something I'm sure British people take for granted, the fact that you're pretty close. The second biggest difference between Brits and Americans is
I could visit before I moved to Paris. So I actually went to Paris for about 5 days before I even moved, and then I went for another weekend trip, and I went to France a whole bunch of times. I was pretty familiar with French culture because of being able to go and visit the country. Obviously it was still culture shocking, but not as much as...
I absolutely knew nothing about France or Paris before I left. I knew that the Eiffel Tower existed, but I did not have the luxury of being able to take a quick train ride over to visit the country before I went. So it was a big plunge, a big risk that I took, and it ended up being fine, but obviously kind of a little bit scarier.
Fair, definitely fair. Reason number 3 is that Americans, which I've noticed in America, carry cups around all the time. Takeaway cups, they go to Starbucks, they carry a cup around, whereas in France and the UK as well, we consume our beverage when we're sat at a table in a cafe, so you can enjoy it more.
This is something that Hannah's particularly picked up on because we are currently in America and the to-go cups everywhere is very culturally shocking to her. So if you're American, say goodbye to your to-go cups.
And get a reusable keep cup or something.
Yeah, or just sit in the cafe for hours like the French do.
Indeed.
I think that the brand differences in terms of what the grocery stores look like is probably a bigger culture shock coming from an American perspective because, first of all, American food rules are a lot more lenient than the rules that exist in Europe. So certain candies don't exist, like my personal favorites, if you're American, Swedish fish, Twizzlers don't exist. Hannah has no idea what those things are. And every time my mom sent me a package, she would include those in them because they are my favorites and they don't exist and are illegal in France. So number 4 is that if you are an American, know that you will not be in the majority of au pairs. All of my friends in France, all my au pair friends were English and would constantly make fun of my accent or my knowledge of the UK.
Like Edinburgh.
Yeah, I would say most au pairs are English just because it is so close. Of course I had Australian friends, I had Swedish friends, I had friends from all over the world, but a lot of au pairs were from England because it's just easier for host families to not even sponsor, to take au pairs from England because you don't need a visa, or you didn't before pre-Brexit, didn't need a visa.
I actually feel a bit bad for you in that situation because I really enjoyed being able to talk to my British friends and talk about the cultural differences, whereas you obviously have very different cultural differences.
Last difference before the camera dies. Americans, because they are so far away from home, I think they have the stereotype of traveling a lot more than British people do because you can travel whenever you want.
Yeah, so I barely ever traveled, whereas Edwina went to all these European countries and cities that I hadn't even been to before because I would just think, oh well, I'll go next year and for now I'll explore Paris, whereas obviously you have an ocean to cross and I have an ocean, but you know, it's not like a little leap away.
What is it called? The English Channel? Some ocean. Alright, that is all for now. If you have any questions bigger differences between us, we're always discovering the differences between us.
Random differences, cultural, everything. If you like our video, please subscribe and like our Facebook page. We post descriptions below which will tell you everything that you need to know and maybe add a few other things. And our book is coming out this year.
That's all for now. Ciao!